If there's anything that this work is here to do, is to make sure that you don't feel that shame and to make sure that you take back your power and that everything you're doing is trying to get into your authenticity. From To Be Magnetic, this is the Expanded Podcast with your host, Lacey Phillips.
And your host, Jessica Gill.
As the leading destination for neural manifestation, we dispel the woo-woo in order to help you create real, tangible results based on neuroplasticity, psychology, epigenetics, and energetics. Our goal is to normalize the practice of manifestation and empower you to get into the driver's seat of your life in order to manifest the experiences, relationships, and things that most align with your authenticity. And by pressing play, the process begins.
Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Expanded Podcast. Jessica here. In today's episode, we are actually airing what was this previous month's monthly check-in. Now, if you are familiar and inside the Pathway membership, then you already know about this. But one of the features of the Pathway membership is a once-a-month Q&A where we answer all of the community's questions, dive into the energetics that are coming up for everyone at this time. And this one was pretty powerful. So we decided to share it with our Expanded Podcast community at large so you can get a taste of what our monthly check-in is like, but also learn some of the themes we're going to be talking about on the upcoming Magnetic Self-Speaking Tour that Lacey and I are going on, which this time next week, I will be in New York City preparing for the New York stop on the tour. Our LA location already sold out, and we're down to the very last few tickets for New York. So if you were thinking about going to the New York stop or want to ask a friend to join, get your tickets ASAP before that one sells out as well. And we also have the Vancouver stop in November. And don't worry if for some reason you are not in those cities or can't make the stop. On our ticket page, there is a spot to put your email if you're interested in what a digital option would look like. We're trying to gauge how many people would be interested in some sort of offering there and what we can do to best serve you guys to get this teaching out to everyone. So in today's episode, one of the things we're going to take a peek at is our manifestation blind spots. Where are we not being honest with ourselves? Where might we be repeating patterns that we can't quite see yet? Now, 3 ways to know that you may have a blind spot or something that you're not aware of that may be impacting your manifestation. 1, if you just had a rock bottom and you don't know why you were rock bottom. 2, if you have the same tests and patterns, keep repeating again and again and again, and you're not sure why it keeps coming up, what the lesson is, what you need to learn. And 3, if you feel like you're unblocking, expanding, taking aligned action, but things aren't quite moving. Another tool you can use to discern if that third one is you is our missing piece exercise that is inside the How to Manifest workshop. So highly recommend checking that out as well. But we're going to touch on what this means in our manifestation practice. We also touch on being seen, manifesting in love, manifesting in career, manifesting in finances. We talk about ghosting. There are so many different elements and they all kind of are under this same umbrella. And one of the best ways to find your patterning, your blind spot, what might be in your way in your process is to chat with another person, the accountability buddy, that other person who can see through whatever you're weaving and webbing in your mind and see it for what is actually going on. Just even speaking the question out loud to someone else who understands this work and getting it reflected back can really help put every piece of the puzzle together for you. So without further ado, enjoy this episode.
And now a word from our partners.
Not all probiotics are created equal. There are a million different products on the market promising to fix, rebalance, restore, reset your gut microbiome and gut barrier. But how many of them actually do? So many are not grounded in science, and that is why we are such fans of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. They are a 2-in-1 pre and probiotic capsule that actually reaches the gut. They are the most science-backed probiotic on the market. Their team of experts, some of which who even coined the original term probiotic, are rigorous about their research, testing, and the quality assurance of their product. Probiotics are fragile and sensitive to heat, oxygen, light, moisture, which makes it really hard for them to fully get to the part of the digestive tract that they support the most. That's why Seed created the VitaCap. It's their proprietary capsule and capsule delivery system, which helps get 100% of the probiotic strains to the part of the digestive system that impacts it the most, which is why Seed is such an effective probiotic. And that is why I make sure to take my Seed 2 capsules first thing in the morning with a cup of lemon water to start off my day. It has made such a difference in my digestive health, my gut barrier integrity, my gut immune function, and it's even had an incredible impact on my skin. So if you're looking for a probiotic that actually works, you can use the code TBM for 30% off your first month supply of Seed's Daily Symbiotic. Again, that is code TBM for 30% off your first month supply. You can check out the link in the show notes or go to seed.com/TBM.
All right, on to the episode.
Lacey, how are you doing?
I'm wonderful. I'm really good. I'm really feeling into all the astral energy going on. I think it's probably prevalent for most people right now, a lot of tension. Have you been feeling that tension?
Yeah, just tension and even like a lot of physical, I don't want to say anxiety necessarily, but it's like I'm in a cloud, like my head's in a daze and I like have like a million things like, how do I get it all done? How do I like ground down into my body again? I feel like that craziness is coming up.
I think that's pretty common right now. I think people are either feeling the tension like that, like extremely ungrounded and all over the place, or they're feeling the tension in relationship dynamics is what I'm gathering from a lot of different people. So I'm curious if our listeners are feeling that as well. But I did make some notes on this because I was getting a little bit of a channeling before this. The big thing that was coming through, if you're identifying with this feeling of tension, this feeling of ungroundedness and like things feeling kind of chaotic and out of control and not in order, the big message that was really coming through is that we are moving into the season of dying. And what that means, with autumn, for me, especially with the way that the world's changing, I don't totally mark autumn anymore by the equinox. I really gauge it based on the light changing as well as just sort of the energy in the weather's changing, even though it's warm where we are. Or of course, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, it's going to be, moving into, you can feel a little bit of that spring coming through. So, for us in the Northern Hemisphere, leaning into that dying energy. And what I mean by that is like I'm really encouraging people, if you haven't done the monthly check-in workshop that this month, this is what this call is for. Like it's to check in with community, of course, but really I'm urging you to do that because things are going to get very clear for you, especially as to what I'm saying. Do this workshop, tune in. You're really supposed to be doing it once a month. If there's anything in my practice within this work, if I fall off of everything this whole summer, I've been like la-da-da. After the challenge, I've been la-da-da. That's the one thing I always ground into every month. And that is the message where it's like, what can die off gently right now? The big communication that was coming through is, how can you ground? You're okay. You're totally okay. What are those practices you're going to use? And the big one coming through was nature. The leaves are going to start changing for some of us, or in the Southern Hemisphere, there's going to be a budding that's happening, a newness, an opening. That was the thing, is like, how can those be the universe for you right now, rather than your dating experiences or relationships or family relationships or your career and whatever. Your communication with yourself and nature, like that's the thing to ground into right now. Let all of the other stuff fly around and root. Like the big message that came in for myself, especially as we're going to be moving to Mendocino and transitioning to Mendocino, the message that came to me was like, you're not going there to connect with people. You're going there to connect with the elements. You're going there to connect with the sea, with the mushrooms, with the forest. So there's just this big message of that coming for the community in general. If you're feeling that tension, where are you grounding in with your communication with nature? That was a really big piece. And then what in your authentic self, when you're doing this monthly check-in and you're looking through your patterning, you're looking through the pings coming up, your expanders, and you're finding one through line through it all, I personally then like to take that through the authentic code, my authentic code, and I like to see what's needing to die off. And then alternatively, if you're in the Southern Hemisphere, what's needing to bloom? You've planted a lot of seeds over the winter for you all. Like, what is it now that you're needing to just get out of there? What are you going to weed out right now in order to let those blossoms happen? So those are the big messages that are coming through for this. And I'll hand it over to you if you have anything else to share on all of that.
Well, I have to say, when you were talking about that feeling of you are okay, you are held, I was like, are you giving me a direct reading? Like, I was like the exact thing I was needing to hear. And I feel like everyone else is also going to really need to hear that no matter what your tests and triggers or intensity or dynamics or anything coming up right now, like it's going to be okay, whatever the outcome is, and leaning into that nature. It's so funny because yesterday I felt like all this intensity and I was like just scrambled. I was on so many calls yesterday. And at the end of the day, I was like, I have to get out in nature. I have to go for a hike. And I got up, and this one peak is usually slammed. It's by Runyon. And it was completely empty. And I was like, it's my safe haven. Like, this is amazing. And I like just sat there and grounded and watched the sunset, and my whole nervous system just like recalibrated. So I think that really is such good wisdom right now to like recenter your body, your physical body, as it's moving through this up level.
Yeah. And like on a witchy note, if you can't get out into nature for whatever reason right now, I really want to offer color therapy and frequencies are other two ways. And of course, doing this deep imagining work. I mean, that's going to help ground anybody using, especially the resourcing ones. But when I say color therapy, like on a witchy note, when I'm using that in my magic practice, so many colors speak to me differently. And the way, in fact, that I touch base with those colors, I have floral arrangements every week. And right now, for instance, the one
I got inspired by your weekly florals, Lacey.
Look at it. Did you get them at the farmer's market?
No, I got them at Trader Joe's. I got a couple different batches. Great. They're so gorgeous. Good.
Well, like that, and how that color therapy, there's something specific right now. That will be something, this maroon that has these like gorgeous, I don't know if it's showing teeny bits of sort of a lavender, I don't know, magenta. And so like when I'm doing this DI work, I'll really pull in that energy and that frequency and allow it to communicate to me however it's going to. So that's one way. And then I use it also with minerals and crystals. Like you can see, I work with a lot of them. They're not needed, and this isn't, but for me, this is how I can anchor energy in and ground energy in and instantly transport me. Like how Janelle talks about, especially in some of the somatic experiencing exercises we use, finding beauty, like that Tauran, grounded, earthing. So that, and then frequencies. Obviously, you have frequencies inside of the deep imaginings, but there are so many I use. There's this one, I don't know if we link in here, but it's called like the Jesus Christ frequency on YouTube. And it's like so legit. I love that one. And these are things, if you can't get into nature right away or your schedule is crazy, like if you can drop into these things and call in support however that looks for you. It could be the universe, it could be your safe person, it could be guides, whomever, and really like just get off the technology. We're so inundated with what social media is telling us we need. It's just creating more of the, and in this dying energy, like let all of that go, create some space, even from community a little bit, and ground in these moments of, especially this particular retrograde. That's the message coming.
Oh my gosh, so good. And so on point, because our number one thumbs up question was how to unblock control. Want to feel safe when I'm not in control, like waiting periods, dating before commitment, waiting for a response from interviews. And this is that remedy.
This is how you take your power back, because it's not like in that dating experience, it's not about that person committing to you. And it's not about the other, like if you're in a magic dark, it's not about the thing that's coming through. It's not about the test that's in front of you or the whatever. It's about your relationship with the universe in between those moments, because those things will fluctuate in your life and they're going to change. And as long as you're doing this work, they're going to continue to up level and up level and up level. To really crystallize this, what I think this moment is calling us to do is recognize who we are between those moments, in our empowerment, in our worth, in our direct relationship with the universe, because that's the only relationship that really matters in our life, right? That's the relationship that's going to help us direct all of the other relationships in our lives, all of the other experiences, all of the things on the material plane and the things that aren't on the material plane. So I think that's like the little messaging. It's that this in-between space. And of course, we know in retrogrades, we're just getting out of the Venus one. I think that's what's being called forward, is like this space in between. The control piece doesn't matter. It's actually how you root in when things feel out of control.
One thing I've recognized over the years that is so helpful is when you get to that heightened state, whether it's a heightened good state, because sometimes you can feel frazzled from being like so excited about something. I know as a generator, I'm like bursting with energy, but I also have to like come back down in between, or the heightened state of like overwhelm, intensity, fear, any kind of emotion there. What is your impulse to do to regulate that feeling? And
nature.
But
that's a rhetorical.
You're like God in nature.
Like
But it's interesting if you watch your patterns of what you try to do and see those things as you trying to self-soothe and regulate, right? Like, do you reach for your phone to check social media because it feels like it puts you back in control again, or do you call a friend and need to vent to them right then and there? It's almost like this feeling when a really big trigger hits or intense emotion hits, you're like, okay, what do I do with it? What do I do with it? And it's like, you're the answer. You sit still, you feel it, you let it come over you. Like, you don't need the phone, the friend, the this, the that. I mean, maybe in a very extreme case, you might. Don't want to put that against anyone in case that is really their safety net. But I think the lesson is in those moments, how can you turn it back to you and bring yourself back to regulation? That's going to be that key to come through everything.
Agreed. Totally agree.
Okay, let's jump into some more questions here. Really struggling to unblock my fear of being seen. I do DIs on it constantly, but still feel crippled when I need to take action. Any tips?
Yeah, this comes up in our community. It has come up since day one. We really have to have the trifecta in motion so often. And not to say that this is what this person's saying, but this will happen. Like, we'll hear either on social media or we'll hear through our chat and customer service, and it'll be like, I've been doing this work for 2 years, but nothing's happening. And one thing that I really started to discover is people were usually doing one thing, but not all three things. For instance, like a great student will do the DIs so well. But in this case, what's needing to happen is to put such small steps, one in foot in front of the other, of walking through fear and taking aligned action. And I think one of the best ways to get there, since it sounds like you're unblocking, is finding expanders who can show you how to do that, show you how it feels safe. the biggest fear is rejection, right? That's the biggest fear. And ultimately, you can work with every therapist in the world and you can do every DI in the world. But unless you start to put yourself out there for micro rejection and knowing that, oh, it's okay after. And this is obviously similarly, this is what the worst case scenario deep imagining was created for. But if you've lived that out in your mind and you've done that deep imagining a few times, like, you do have to take it into the world. And if that still feels so scary, I'm sure by now, if you've been doing the deep imaginings, you've probably gotten to the root of why. I would highly suggest potentially working with someone to support holding your hand through that step-by-step process. But you do ultimately have to take micro steps now in order to start creating the magnetism and putting yourself out there.
Yeah. And one thing, even when we were doing the magnetic self challenge, when I was like researching confidence and confidence building and all of those things, the biggest thing, it's not just stepping through fear, but it's stepping through fear and realizing like, okay, part of confidence is having a period where you might just feel a little uncomfortable, and that's okay. That's a part of the growth period. That is your growth edge that you're leaning up against. And so if you're like so scared of being seen and putting yourself out there, one of the best remedies, while you're doing those other things of unblocking, is just doing it. And
you
then
have to
feeling uncomfortable and then keep going. And then it will feel less uncomfortable.
Learning that after you do it, and if there is any form of like rejection or no traction or whatever, you're still okay. Like that's what's going to build the trust muscle, but you won't know until you actually do it. So the real remedy here is expanding and taking aligned action.
Especially people who, put themselves out there to be seen, whether that's seen in a work meeting or seen online or seen amongst their family or friends or whatever it is, you're going to look back at the beginning stages of it and kind of cringe. I feel like everyone does that. It's almost like a toddler learning to walk. They're like stumbling around, kind of falling a little bit. And then once they're walking normally, you don't even think twice about it. So it's like, allow yourself to be in the toddler phase of being seen. It might not look perfect. It might look wonky. You might look back and cringe. It's all good.
And one hot tip too is, I don't know, where you're wanting to be seen in the specific scenario, but going into a totally different lane and putting yourself out there first, where like nobody knows you. If you go home, you're like, well, I don't know any of them anyway, like put yourself out in that lane first and start to feel in and create the neuroplasticity that, oh, I'm safe after that. That was uncomfortable and hard, but I'm still safe. Put yourself out in that lane first so that you can create that strength and that muscle memory to start putting yourself out in the lane that you're interested in putting yourself out, whether it's relationships or like you said, online or whatever.
And that process, because I've gotten a bunch of questions too about trust stuff or trying something new for the first time. It is the same process. It is that micro moment of like, okay, I'm going to do the uncomfortable. And then afterwards, really take a moment and be like, I am safe. I am good. And you're self-expanding. Like that's when I talked about, I think on previous episodes at some point, my early mid 20s, I had really bad trust issues, and how I unblocked out of that was a lot of that unblocking work through inner child, expanding, seeing that I could do it, and then taking those micro steps of action of like, okay, this is something that I would usually feel so uncomfortable by, but I'm going to let it go and I'm going to see what happens. And I was fine. And then I did that over and over and over again until I was like, okay, I got this. I'm good.
Yeah. You have this. It's just going to be putting one foot in front of the other.
Okay. What does it mean when you have been doing the TBM work consistently, you feel like you've become your magnetic self, but you're not seeing manifestations come through?
I'll let you take this one, Jessica.
I feel like two things could be happening. One, it could be what Lacey was kind of saying in the last one, where you're missing one of the three parts of the trifecta. You're feeling that essence, but maybe you're not putting that essence into action, taking the steps in the real world. You feel magnetic, but are you magnetically applying for that job you want? Are you taking the necessary steps behind the scenes? But there's another route, and I'm not saying this is this person, but it could be, is everything feeling fully authentic, or is it what you think you should be doing? Maybe you think this is the essence of magnetism, but is that magnetism your true essence that's in your soul, or what you think magnetism should look like?
that was the big hit my intuition was saying on this one to reintroduce to the community, is that it's actually really exciting because on the speaking tour, we're going to be releasing these 3 archetypes that we worked on together with Janelle, and we really refined, and Jessica refined. And in it, there's this one that I see so many people, all 3 of them are like to the T what people are in this community. And I have been versions of all of them myself. And I know Jessica has as well. Mm-hmm. And what you're really going to figure out is how to find your blind spot, because you don't totally know you're this until it's like told to you and you recognize it. Mm-hmm. And one of those is you're a big picture thinker, mm-hmm. and you have really big ideas, and you're meant to be something great, but distill down a little bit more. The world has fed to you like what magnetism is and what being magnetic is, and so you feel like doing this work, you're that. The remedy for this person is those dreams are beautiful and they're going to happen and it's meaningful, but the person's totally in their ego still. They're not at all like distilled into what Jessica was saying, like really coming from their authenticity. And so I would argue that both things are happening if you haven't seen any manifestations and you're doing this work, because I will tell you this, that's impossible. Like I will just say that after thousands of people. And I don't mean like the work is so great, it's impossible. I just mean we've just seen it work on literally everybody. So basically, I would argue that both things are happening. The trifecta isn't totally all happening at the same time, meaning that you're unblocking, expanding, and taking aligned action, all 3 at the same time, in particular to manifestations you're calling in, and you're not totally coming from your pure, completely whole, worthy, authentic self. There's still ego and societal programming or family or media that's guiding your form of magnetism.
I think for that too, if you're kind of like, okay, well, which one do I need more of? I think, because this happens a lot. People are like, I think I'm doing all 3. And then in the missing piece, we have it at the bottom of how to manifest. But if you do that exercise and that DI, it'll be really clear what you're missing. Mm-hmm. So go in and check that out, because I think sometimes you're like, yeah, okay, like here's my expander. I took this action. I'm unblocking, like it should be working. There's one that like it hasn't clicked to that next point yet.
Yeah, and it can be, I don't think that this is this person's, because if they're not seeing any manifestations happening, it means that there's quite a bit of expanding, unblocking, and aligned action that needs to take place. Because when you start to do this work, usually you start to have little manifestations already coming through because you're moving energy. But like an example of this, there's a woman I know that has been doing this work for a long time. She's manifested many amazing things, but never the partner. This is why the tour will be so exciting, because there's elements like this and nuances that people don't understand. When I asked her, I was like, okay, like, let's go through your expanders, because I knew she had really been deeply doing the unblocking to the degree that was deep and authentic, and who she's been calling in as a partner. I could see her having that partner because she lives in Los Angeles and what she's been exposed to. But she had always been dating like in this last year and had been doing really well at, passing tests and stuff and following the whole love formula. And her type of person kept coming through, but wasn't sticking, right? It was like emotionally unavailable in a way. Like they were present and being great and awesome, but they were just like, I'm just not ready for this next step. Like I'm scared of it. And a lot of people don't think about this. And this is how nuanced this work becomes. I asked her, I was like, have you ever had a full expansion in this? And she was like, yeah, these are the different 3 women I know that are over 40 that have this type of partner, that have all the things she wants. And I was like, but most importantly, have you ever had an expander in this guy that you're calling in? Like, have you ever seen this guy that is a gazillionaire and has all the things and is also super committed to his family and present with his partner, and the partner's over 40? And she was like, no. And I was like, well, there's the missing piece, and so that's kind of a tangent, but I think that will help many people, like really turning around the expander lens. It's not always just about finding the person you identify with that has gone on to have the things, have you also ever shown your subconscious a full expansion in the thing that exists, So yeah, it's a tangent, but it's important. There's so many nuances to the work, and that's why I think we continue putting out new content. Yeah. That's why there's a speaking tour, and there's going to be an end of the year challenge, and there was a mid-year magnetic challenge, because even though this work is all energetic based, we're constantly trying to figure out how to distill it down into step-by-step, totally reasonable, logical, actionable things.
Yeah, it's really trying to help you guys find the blind spots. It's trying to find those parts of you that you're like, everything that I'm looking at, how can I not have everything I want? And then it's like, okay, cool. There's a little bit here and a little bit here that's out of your range of vision. Let's bring that insight so we can help you get the full picture. I don't know about you all, but my sinuses have been going crazy. Maybe there's more pollen in the air or more dust, but for some reason, my nose keeps getting stuffy and running. And whenever I have anything with my sinuses, the first thing I run to is my Beekeepers Naturals. We are obsessed with them here at To Be Magnetic. They are the company that is reinventing the medicine cabinet by creating clean, effective products powered by the beehive and backed by science. So I will go and grab their nasal spray, which is a completely clean, all natural way to support, clear, and soothe your sinuses when you're having irritation, with all of the stuff that you need that helps your body recover without any of the addictive, habit-forming things that are in other nasal sprays out there on the market. It is packed with propolis, which is the defender of the beehive. Bees use it to line the walls and keep germs out of the hive. And when we take it internally, it is packed with B, C, and D vitamins, zinc, antioxidants, and 300 plus beneficial compounds. So when you get to spray this in your nose, it helps soothe the entire area and keep germs out. And it's also incredible to use before traveling or getting exposed to large groups of people. I heard a long time ago a recommendation that people have always said to put some sort of lubricant in your nose before you're going to go on an airplane or somewhere where you're exposed to a lot of different germs, because it helps lubricate the area and can trap the germs. And that's exactly what this propolis nasal spray does, but it has the added benefit of also having vitamins and minerals that are going to boost your immune at the same time. And their herbal formula also includes eucalyptus, oregano oil, and xylitol, which will help the flow of mucus and increase nasal volume to help clear your sinus passages. So if you are suffering from allergies, stuffy nose, dust, or you're just going to be exposed to a lot of people and you want to really boost your immune, this is a game changer. You can also check out their throat spray, which I also use to support whenever I fly or travel. I have my nose spray and throat spray in my front pouch and make sure to spray both before getting on the airplane. And my health is in great condition afterwards. It gives me that extra boost. If you want to check out any of the Beekeepers natural products, you can go to their site, beekeepersnaturals.com, or check the link in show notes and use the code TBM for 25% off your purchase. Again, that is TBM for 25% off. It's so funny you share that example, because today we had the episode go live with Sydney, who in the unblocking session where she was like trying to find that other expander piece. And it was a very similar thing where she was just missing the male version expander of what she wanted in relationship. So you guys definitely check out that episode too, because there's a lot of good insight in there.
Agreed. And I'm just getting so excited about these new teachings. I personally am, because I'm identifying now. When I will meet with people or talk to people, I'll be like, oh, you're that archetype. And this is what's going on. And I can see it all. And even though I could see that energetically in ways before, they weren't categorized into these like what we're talking about, distilled into very logical, actionable, relatable action items. So I'm actually getting really excited to introduce that on the tour.
I know. And the cool thing is we're going to have sort of like the magnetic side of each archetype and the shadow and inner child wounding side of each one. So you can see very clearly. I was humbled so fast looking at it because I was like, dang, hey, that one is still in that category. Like we need to move it over into the magnetic side of it because all of the archetypes have really cool gifts and blessings and all of that stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how you guys relate in down to everything.
Yeah. And on that note, one thing I do want to say, and this is just a common reminder that I remind myself and I want to remind the community, if we are not honest with ourselves, this work takes 10 times longer. I'll say manifestations take 10 times longer. The more self-awareness and real we can just get with ourselves, the faster this all happens. So like getting back to that question, I've been doing this work. I feel like I'm very magnetic, but manifestations aren't happening. Hearing the words, oh, I need to get more authentic. I need to get into my, like that will speed up that process for you tenfold. Just a reminder.
Yeah, I know. I'm thinking about friends who are going to go to the tour and I'm like, are they going to be able to identify themselves? I know what archetype they are, but are they going to get it?
Well, that's why we're kind of renaming it to Finding Your Blind Spot, because people, it's fascinating how much we've been talking about the love money connection and people are like, I have one, I am manifesting the other, but I don't think I need. And I'm like, wait, what? What? So I starting to reframe that the importance of these new teachings, which is the archetypes and the new deep imagining that are completely to find your blind spot, whether what you're manifesting is in love or whether it's in money. And I think a lot of people are really not understanding the things that fall under the energetics of both. Love means every relationship in your life, parental child relationship, love with your significant partner that you're calling in, because a lot of people don't realize that one narcissistic friend could be blocking your partner from coming in. A very connected relationship with your narcissistic mom could be blocking those friendships you're wanting to call. Like people don't know that. So it's like, we're just going to have to rename this to Finding Your Blind Spots because people aren't getting it and like how important this is. So we've gone from really meeting and connecting with our magnetic self. We're moving into, okay, we need to find our blind spot of this thing we're calling in or things, because like, let's just take the money energetic. People don't realize that what falls under that is anything to do with security. So that can be home, that can be anything to do with finances, with career. There's such a branch there. Like I saw in the community group yesterday where it was like, I really want to jump off of a cliff and do this thing I want to do in my career, but my partner's supporting me. There's so many elements that addresses. So like the tour's officially being re-educated as Finding Your Blind Spot, because we've gone through meeting our magnetic self on this 6-month journey, meeting our magnetic self, tuning into that, learning how to get into that, pull out of it when we're out of it, how to move into that energy, be with that energy, work from that energy. Now it's our opportunity to really figure out our blind spot before we go into finishing out the 6-month journey into the end of the year manifestation challenge, which is, I'm excited for Jessica to start talking about that soon, but we won't get into it. But the whole crux of that is to connect so fully and closely with your manifestation within the first so many months of the new year. If you're following along on this journey, it's going to be a really beautiful start to 2024.
Yes. One of the benefits and the beauty of being able to find your blind spot is to utilize the spaces in your life where you do have manifestations coming through. Like even with like the love money connection between that, right? The invitation to even have looked at that is to find your blind spots, because let's say you have inverse love and money, right? Like money's doing so good and you cannot find the partner. What are you doing in here that you can use to then bump this up? And then if they're on the same plane, great. Okay, cool. The same thing that's hitting this is hitting this. Let's raise it up to the next level. I started writing an analogy somewhere, but I don't know if it's going out that way, but of like the seesaw.
Yeah, it's an amazing one.
Yeah, that like your love and money and think about all the categories Lacey's putting under either of those buckets. Like there's pretty much anything you want to manifest is either in love or money in some sector. And love can even be that self-love, that true self-confidence, connection to self, all of that. But the thing that hinges the seesaw together is your self-worth. And so it's like, are you going to have it be balanced and move up like this? Or are you going to have it go this and try to leverage one over to like kind of move up like this? Just to paint a visual for anyone who's like, I don't understand how to utilize it. We'll teach you. Don't worry. We're going to break down everything on the tour.
And one of my favorite elements when people are like, like the example you just gave, for instance, if money could be doing so well, that portal, whether it's career, home, finances, and like love's just not coming through, people don't realize, and this is what we'll educate on more, the same wounding that made you really successful in this, like overachieve and have that or be born with it or whatever that same wounding is actually probably the wounding that's making this not happen. So for instance, if you grew up with a parent who, let's say the mom was stay at home, like traditional, what was fed to us from the patriarchy, for so many years, and the dad was the breadwinner, and you were like, I never want to identify as my mom. Oh my God. Like totally subconsciously, because maybe he didn't treat her well and her needs weren't being met, whatever. This is one example. So that wounding made you overachieve here in that category, but it's the same one that's making you go like, stay back, love, because that could happen to me. And it's just like the umbrella is so big and nuanced, and people are like, I don't need love and money. And it's like, wait, what? Anything you could be manifesting is under those. So honestly, it's time to take this moment to knock out our blind spots before we go into that manifestation challenge at the end of the year. That's like our whole psychology behind it.
Yes. Oh, I'm so excited. I can't wait to like participate in it, because I feel like so much has shifted. Just clarity through the magnetic self challenge, just expansiveness, nervous system tools to go to, and now getting able to, okay, let's see, what else was I missing, not seeing, looking at it from a very systematic way.
Totally. Me too.
Okay. On the money theme, grew up feeling unworthy of money, needs being met like a burden, have always struggled making more than enough, yet have been very successful in love.
So this is the beauty of love and money, right? Like the same wounding that probably created her to be, I won't say maybe codependent or anything, but always partnered. It's probably the same wounding that's not allowing money to come in. So like, for instance, that's what this person will be learning, finding the blind spot. What is that wounding? Number one, what archetype am I? Understanding that they're connected, the seesaw, right? Because I would argue that even in relationship and being partnered, self-worth isn't 100% in the relationship. Otherwise, if it were, it would be 100% in money as well. So where one could be doing super well, there's a wounding there that makes this person very partnered. Whether the relationship's great or not, or they think it's great, it's most likely the same wounding that's not allowing money to come in. And I'll give an example of that. I'll take growing up with a single mother. Maybe she saw her mother always in partnership, or like that was the mom's form of security growing up, was that, it could have been father, it could have been caretaker, it could have been whomever. However, they were always like struggling to get ends meet. But the one place they received all of their security was in this. And therefore, there's this happening. However, if we find the blind spot and we do the work to raise the self-worth in both, completely authentic to what we came onto the planet desiring, because the relationship one could be in that they think is like socially the one they're supposed to be in to be loved and accepted may not even be the full authentic expression, not meaning that you have to leave the relationship. It means that you will shift, and therefore the relationship will begin to either shift into the dynamic of your total authenticity and or shift in general. So as that shift's happening, the same is going to start happening in money, because they're always directly connected. And there was like an email I sent out a few weeks ago, if you followed the email list, that I really talked about like my experience. It took me a while to figure out this connection because I would look at my experience, right? When I was like a waitress at the brokest, poorest place ever, I was also the doormat in dating. Same with when I kind of went to the teaching job and had the relationship that I thought was going to be the thing. They were both super subpar, and I wasn't making over anything that was going to allow me to have the life financially that I really desired, especially to have children in Los Angeles specifically. And then when I finally jumped off the cliff of both and I did all of the work to call in Max, which came in very quickly, it was also the same time that the universe in a beautiful magic dark dried my resources up and was like, okay, your partner that you've been asking for and doing all of this work on came through, but also everything you've been asking for in career and money is orbiting you. So I'm going to dry up your resources and I'm going to tell you what you need to do. And if you don't, you're not going to see money again. And that was this work of manifestation. And the beautiful takeaway I want to say to that is, what I have in my relationship as well as my career, which has continued to be work and up level, right? It's not like they just stayed the same when I launched manifestation. It's like it continues to change and up level. They've always come from my totally authentic self-worth place. That's what's continuing to grow. So like Jessica said, the seesaw, where you have self-worth in one, you will have self-worth in the other. And if they're like this, or like this, it means that most likely the one thing you're desiring out of the one that's below is also unconsciously or consciously the thing you're desiring up here. And most likely the wounding from below is the same wounding from here and vice versa. So we're going to really get into that. So it was funny because when I went into the community group, the first 10 things were all love and money. And I'm like, you guys, let's find our blind spots. Let's do this to go into that last challenge.
Well, it's so interesting too, because as you're talking, I think I'm also understanding why certain people got confused with things, because think of the seesaw analogy. So when you had that moment where Max came through and the career was dried up, the seesaw tipped for a little bit and you were able to leverage what was happening and the pattern with Max in order to bring it back into balance, right? I think when people's seesaw is almost vertical, up here, they dipped in ego.
Oh yeah,
and it's
100%.
If it's down here, it's in that inner child wounding and shadow. So it's let's pull it back here and we can approach unblocking in both from that whole place of self-worth.
For the person who's like, I have both and I'm actually right here or here or here, the real takeaway is most likely you're manifesting something under each of these brackets, whether it's new dynamics in friendships, relationships, family, children, whatever's going on there that you're calling in your life of connection. Similarly, there's something you're probably also manifesting from the other bucket of money, whether it's lifestyle, something in home, something about that, something with finances and about that, or career. That's why very clearly the channeling came for this theme, is that we need to, for lack of a better words, find our blind spot to be magnetic, our most magnetic selves, to go into 2024.
The reason that so many of our manifestations fall under the broad category of money or the broad category of love is because that is the thing that drives us, that motivates us as humans. Yeah. And why does the universe want to motivate us? To become our whole authentic, worthy selves. So it's kind of a cool blessing in that way, that we're wanting these things. And it's really about how do we get them to be our true authentic versions, because the universe wants us to come back to our own center.
100%. It's because it's the thing that the universe knows every human being is most motivated by, to be 100% loved for exactly who you are and in connection with community. It's not just your lover and community, family, everything. And the second greatest motivator is security. So all of those things we love in the realm of security, may it be lifestyle, home, career, finances, trips, all of that stuff that's security based. So those are the two things that motivate every human that's not fully hit their level of complete, utter consciousness. And therefore, it's the thing the universe knows that it can dance with you and have the biggest motivation behind it to get you to come back to your whole worthy, authentic self, the the closest, the fastest in order to receive all of those things that you authentically came onto the planet to experience, have, and live out your purpose. And that is what every human being is here to experience. And that is why it motivates. And that's why I'm like, are people not understanding how important this is? Like, what's going on? So we're just reframing it with the blind spot piece, because I think people click with that a little bit more.
Guys, you are getting blessed by the universe to work out your test. Like, this is such a cool opportunity. Let's get in there together.
There's so many people out there settling for unfulfilling relationships, or people who are stuck in toxic jobs, living in places and spaces that don't inspire them, and especially people who feel like they'll never be able to afford the things and the life that they truly desire. How do I know that? Because it was me before I discovered that manifestation is actually a totally viable, scientifically proven method of creating the life you want. I'm Lacey, I'm the founder of To Be Magnetic, and if you're not familiar with us, we at TBM offer workshops that teach you how to manifest literally everything, from love to money to career to beyond. Our courses are the most effective manifestation method on the market, and that's because of a secret that I discovered years ago about manifestation, which is you do not manifest from your thoughts. You manifest from your subconscious beliefs. So after decades of client research and input from leading doctors and therapists, we designed courses that help you rewire your subconscious mind to align with what you want to manifest. And the best part of all, for any skeptic out there, our work is completely scientifically proven to work. Just ask the tens of thousands of members inside our Pathway membership, which gives you unlimited access to all of our workshops, tools, and offerings that you'll use over the course of a year. This includes workshops on inner child, shadow, boundaries, love, money, the infamous ruts, and the horrible rock bottoms, and so much more. Use our special code EXPANDED, all caps EXPANDED, to receive $20 off your first TBM purchase. Again, that's all caps EXPANDED, EXPANDED. Okay, now back to the episode.
Okay.
One thing I do want to cover, because I saw this a lot in the community group, I've been seeing this in my own personal DMs, ghosting. I really need people to know and reframe ghosting, because it's a very common thing now in our culture, and people take it as the greatest rejection. And I really want to reframe that for you the same way that To Be Magnetic has reframed for you that envy, actually, you're witnessing one of your greatest expanders. Ghosting is very similar to this. Ghosting means it's a test and expander at the same time, which is one of the greatest gifts the universe can give you, because it's not just a straight up test, like a blatant, super identifiable shitty test. That's not what's going on. Ghosting means that you are starting to be engaged, whether this is in job, whether it's in money, whether it's in friendship, whether it's in whatever. You are being engaged with something that you're calling in. You were getting a flavor of expansion. The universe was gifting you the feeling of how it feels to be close to what you want, and what that experience will be somewhat like. You're getting that expansion, even if it's little. I remember my cousin once, I feel like New York's like the worst that goes.
I was going to say, I have a friend example right from New York who had that
Right
happen.
From New York. We're looking at you guys on the speaking tour in New York to talk about ghosting. But I remember her, who had been single for a very, very long time, gorgeous, really accomplished, and she finally met this guy. This is such like a New York story. He was very successful, and they had such dynamic, fun dates. They were so connected, and they were on such a track of chemistry and really hitting this beautiful stride. And then bam, just ghosted her. And she's a sensitive Cancer, so obviously that was like horrifying, and it feels like the deepest rejection. Anybody who gets ghosted, again, may it be a friend or like a job opportunity. What was going on there is the universe had given her an incredible expander that her subconscious had never seen before. That type of guy, successful in New York, that could happen, that exists. And then it also was a test. And so I guess the big takeaway I want to say about this ghosting is it really hurts. The same way envy feels really ugly when you're experiencing it. But what is actually happening in ghosting is that your manifestation is so close, and your subconscious, you haven't found the expander, and the universe is starting to give you these expansions that you haven't witnessed or seen. And also it's testing you to see, like, from the ghosting, of course, feel your feelings and let those go through you. But is this going to knock you off? Is it going to knock you off all of the work you've done to grow your self-worth, to really integrate, to know that you are so deserving of what you're calling in? Because the universe is like, if they're getting this knocked off by this, they're not totally in alignment with the self-worth of the thing they're calling in. So I just really need this ghost. I've seen it now 3 times in the last 3 days. The ghosting thing is a gift. Feel your feelings for a couple of days, let it go through you, but get really fucking excited about the work you've done for what's about to come through and what wants to come through. So let that reframe please sink in, because that's what's actually happening in the energetics of manifestation.
Oh, that's so exciting. It also goes back to kind of what we were saying in the beginning of it's all about understanding that in-between phase. A trigger, a stimuli, or something happened, and then there's like the grounded sensation, we're good on the other side. But that in between, like when we don't have that manifestation, when we don't know how to fully like drop in, like how are we going to react? Are we going to go back to old low self-worth belief cycles where we're blaming ourselves and it must be something I did and what's wrong with me and blah, blah. Or are we going to say like, okay, that person wasn't ready for a relationship. It says nothing about me.
That's the piece I forgot to mention.
Yeah.
I'm so glad you said that, Jessica. Most important part, when somebody ghosts you, it's their own wounding. It has nothing to do with you, but it feels like the greatest rejection, that it has everything to do with you. Continue.
Yes.
I forgot that piece.
That like your invitation in that moment is, are you going to remember that you're all, the beginning part that made me tear up, you're all good. That is the thing that you're being taught in that in between.
2 things. Yeah. You're being shown that this is possible and being tested to see if you're able to feel your feelings and have that moment and let that emotion work through you, but not get knocked off, just like Jessica's saying, and not take it personally.
It's hard. But it hurts. So possible.
It hurts. It really hurts.
I also, you said it, but I also just want to highlight it because I know there's a lot of people that are searching for the right aligned job right now. It's the same thing. If you're getting the constant rejections or no phone calls back or no responses on interviews, like it has nothing to do with your worth. Like we're even going through hiring for one position right now. And like we had so many submissions that were all so worthy and amazing and incredible. And it's just like we have only one spot to fill, So it's like from the hiring perspective, everyone's worthy and amazing. It just isn't the right timing, this, that, whatever it is. Don't take it personally. Think of like, okay, cool. Like how can I empower myself on the other side and like go back out there?
Yeah.
Okay. I've always struggled with career clarity. After 9 to 12 months in a job, I feel unmotivated, started a new career during COVID and already want to change. Is there hope?
I'm going to let you take that just because I feel like we've answered this many, many times. And I just want to hear your fresh insight on it.
Yeah, I actually have a friend who's going through something very similar. And she's like, can the end of year challenge start yet? Because I need to figure out what I need to manifest in career. And I'm freaking out. It's so interesting because her mindset, and this is not the person who wrote in, but is like, okay, well, I could do all of this and this and this, and I could do this. And it's like frantic laundry list of trying to intellectualize what is the right thing and what's going to be the thing that moves the needle. The beautiful thing is you don't have to do the thing that you're going to do forever. And you're going to feel the sensation within you when you're in the right spot. So if you are like, okay, cool, this job, I actually doesn't work for me anymore. Amazing. It was your expander. Same thing with the ghosting, it was your expander. Now it's a test. You move on and you go find new information and new skills and try a new thing out and then pivot to something else. I mean, I think we are in one of the best times in history where you can job hop so easily. Where 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago, people were locked in and it was like really, really hard to change companies. I feel like there's so many different jobs, so many different opportunities. Let your experience in the job that lit you up be your bridge job, be your expander job, soak that up for everything it is. And when you feel the feeling that like, okay, time's up here, you can move on there and remove the shame that that's a bad thing and that you have to find this like permanent fixture of career.
Yeah, we're in a society that tells us at 18, you need to figure out what you want to do with the rest of your life, then go into debt to somehow get some skills towards it that you'll probably never use towards it. Mm-hmm. And then you better stick with it and be successful in it by the time you're 30. And if you're not, and you're hopping around, you're a failure. What? Like, that's crazy. I didn't even know what I wanted to do until I was 30. I didn't even know what my talents or gifts were. And that was lucky that I knew by then. If there's anything that this work is here to do, is to make sure that you don't feel that shame and to make sure that you take back your power and that everything you're doing is trying to get into your authenticity, because you came onto this planet with a purpose and purposes. It's not just like one thing you're going to do. Look at all of my work in manifestation. And then now look at everything I'm so passionate about in this familiars thing about helping connect dogs on the youth list with the witches they're supposed to be in. That we have purposes and they're authentic and they're so special when you align with them. And just like Jessica's saying, everything you're doing until you get there is to pick up the skill sets. Once you align with them, you can just go like full steam ahead and start to pull in the people you need around you to support who have those other skill sets. If there's any narrative I wish I could break, call me the greatest Aquarius, is this whole go to college, know what you want to do, get in debt, and you better be doing it and doing it long term. And then have, after that, make sure to get married and then have some kids. It's like, what in the fuck does your authentic self want? What did it come here to experience? Like, we're each so authentic. That model does not work for everybody. It works for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. And that's another thing that falls into this bucket under the money piece, where it's like, how many of us are living in that? Because if you're not finding a relationship and you're like successful in that, and you haven't really ever totally checked in with your authentic self, I can guarantee you that what your authentic self might desire something different in this that's going to help bring up the relationship piece.
Are there any closing thoughts? Any other, I guess, things for people to think about going in? Like, definitely monthly check-in, definitely get tour tickets, connect with us.
The value of the in-person is you're going to link up and really meet your accountability buddy. And you're really going to make community that you can continue to connect with for a long time. Like, that's the huge value of being there in person. And in person, you get to really ask Jessica and I questions and meet us. So it's this really beautiful energy that takes place in person. And I mean, what are we, 3 weeks away now from New York? I'm so excited for New York. It's this is just so reminiscent on how this work started. I've been reflecting so much about being in these tiny little, I would rent Airbnbs in New York and then host these tiny little circles where I would teach how to manifest. That was for the first year, and then things like really took off. And so anytime I go to New York feels like the very first in-person community that I ever connected with. Like, I still remember the talks that I would give, like in the first year at the Little Cat Beauty in the West Village that would have lines out. You know what I mean? Like, the New York community is so special. And I remember like people would come in from Washington, D.C., they would take the train, and it's just like to be able to be in community with these people that speak the same language and are manifesting together with us. Like, we're a family. I am so excited for that energy together. And yeah, we'll see you in 3 weeks in New York.
Yes, we'll see you soon. Thank you, everyone. I hope you all enjoyed that episode and got a little taste of our Q&A that we host monthly inside of our Pathway membership portal. And if you want to learn more about the blind spot or the Love Money Connection, be sure to meet up with us on the Magnetic Self Speaking Tour kicking off next Saturday, September 16th in New York City. We still have a few tickets left, or in Vancouver, British Columbia. Our LA stop is sold out. And if you're unable to make the speaking event at all, just put your email in on the ticketing page so we can notify you when an offering becomes available for you to get a digital teaching of everything we're covering on tour. I hope you guys have a beautiful week.